Hey everybody. So a couple of weeks ago I did an online session about how to use QnA Maker to create a simple question and answer bot. And in that video, when I was doing it, a lot of people were asking me about the multi-turn functionality of using the QnA Maker. And it was out of scope for what I was planning to show in the time I had given, but I did want to do a follow-up video to show you guys how to use the multiple turns in QnA Maker and exactly what the multiple turns mean for the bot. A lot of people had questions about wanting to use QnA Maker to have the bots prompt users for more information or to kind of hold the state of the conversation. And the multiple turns in the QnA Maker doesn't really give you the ability to maintain state of a bot conversation, especially when you use the out-of-the-box functionality. And you can't really prompt users for more information. But what you can do is you can prompt the user for a specific set of more information to talk about. So if somebody is asking and they say, hey, I want ice cream, you could prompt them with QnA Maker multiple terms to say, hey, what type of ice cream would you like? And then present them with their options, like chocolate, strawberry, vanilla, and they could click on that to get more information. So the point of the multiple turns is to guide users through the conversation to get them to the specific information they're looking for, and then letting them know basically what their options are to continue asking for that information. So if that doesn't make sense, let's go ahead and set up a bot quickly that uses multiple turns. I also ran into some quirks when following the directions for the multiple turns, so I wanted to address those as well in case you have those problems setting up a QnA Maker bot for multiple turns. So if you go into QnAMaker.ai, you do have the options of creating a new knowledge base, and this is what we're going to do for our bot. We're going to set up a new knowledge base. And as part of setting up that knowledge base, you need a QnA service running in Azure. In my previous video about this, I walked through the steps of creating that service. I'm just going to link to that video in the description. I'm not going to walk you through setting up that service here in this video, so you can go back and check that one out. So let's go ahead and just select that service now. So we will select our tenant, we'll select our subscription, and the QnA service that we previously created. And then we're going to name our knowledge base. So I'm just going to call this my QnA multi-turn bot. And then we need to populate the knowledge base. And one of the first things it asks you is, do you want to enable this bot to have multi-turn extraction from PDFs, URLs, and docs? So yes, we want to enable that. And then it's going to ask you for a default answer. And this default answer is, what text do you want to use if there is no answer extracted from the QnA search that it does initially. So you can say what's the default response you want to give. So let's say that we're going to create a bot for my company Paid Group that's just basically going to tell people more about Paid Group. So for my default text, I'll just say contact Paid Group for more information at info@paidgroup.com. Now the next thing you need to do is you need to seed your knowledge base with existing FAQ. You could go through and do everything manually, but it's much easier to handle if you start off with something. And if you go and look at the directions for the multi-turn, right here's a link, it says learn more. If we click on this link, it'll actually walk you through step by step a lot of information for setting up a multi-turn bot. But one of the things it says is that when you're creating a multi-turn bot, the way it works for stripping out the conversations is it takes a header, it looks for a header in your document, and this is the question the user asks. And then it looks for subheaders underneath that headers as what prompts should we give the person within that document. It's also very clear that you do not want to end your headings with question marks, and you make sure that you have capital letters. So I actually created a really simple Word document here following those directions. And you can see that the heading here is what services does Paid offer, and then it comes back with a response, and then it's got some subheadings for the different services that PakeGroup offers with text about those services. I also have one up here, a heading for what does PATE stand for, and then the subheading for it is contact us. So this, just with this two information and following those directions, the main heading is the first person the question asks, and the subheading is what do you want to prompt them with for more information. So if we look at this and follow the directions, I should be able to come over here into the QnA Maker, add this Word document that I created, as the bot to populate it with, and then to also give it a personality. I'll go to professional personality, and it's going to create the knowledge base. So now it's looking at that Word document, and it's trying to extract out the multi-turn prompts from that. Now here we have the extracted content, but it did not properly extract the prompts. And if you see over here, you can see that it's got this, you can see the prompts are in here. Contact us, that was my prompt. For the services, here's my prompts are actually in here in the responses, but it wasn't able to extract it properly, even though I followed the directions of having headers without question marks and capital letters for the headers. And I must have spent half a day trying to figure out if there was some magic to make this Word document work every time, and I was not able to find it. If you do go back to the instructions for the QnA bot, they do have a link to a sample Word document that you can use to start from, and you can edit their existing document to make changes to it. But even when you do that, you may break the document because you've put some character in there somewhere, you've done something where it does not work anymore. So in order to get started with your bot, and you want to get your structure started, what I found works pretty consistently is if you basically take out all your responses and you just put your prompts in there. So instead of having the actual text for the response, you can just put in the word response. So I'm going to go through here real quick, and I'm going to replace all of these responses. Instead of having the text, I'm just going to have the word response so I can know that it will actually extract everything okay. I know this is kind of a pain. I wish I had the magic words for you for how to make this consistently work all the time. If somebody watching this video has figured this out, how you can make it consistently work every single time. I even tried using an HTML file that had H1s and H2s, and I was not able to get a consistent result to where when I had all the content in there, it would be parsed correctly. But by changing it to just your headers, subheaders, and the word response for the text, or maybe even a short sentence, but I'm just going with one word response. Now if I save this, let me save it as bot2. So now when I go back into QnA Maker, I go to create a knowledge base again. Let's create another one. And we will choose our tenant subscription QnA service, called another test. We're going to enable multi-turn, default answer, contact us for more info, and then we can add that file again that we just created. So now when I add bot2, give it a professional personality and create the knowledge base, we should see it get created correctly. So if we scroll up now, we can now see that it did pick up those prompts correctly, because you can see by the structure here that when someone asks what does PATE stand for, we're going to give them a response, and then they're going to have a prompt to contact us for more information. And if we look at our Word document, when someone says what does PATE stand for, you give them a response and a prompt to contact us for more information. So we can now see that it did actually scrape that properly. Another thing you can do though is maybe when someone says what does PATE stand for, we maybe also want to say contact us, and we want to say, hey, ask about our services. So we can add a follow-up prompt here and say for the text you can say see our services, And now we can link it to some information we already have, which is what services does Pate offer. So now you can go through, and even though our document didn't have the structure for this, when someone says, hey, what does Pate stand for? We can say, hey, contact us, and we can also say, hey, look at our services. So I can actually save all this, and let's give it a shot and test it out. You can see by adding that additional prompt, we do see those additional follow-up prompts. And you can actually put multiple levels down of these prompts. If you really want to keep putting people down more and more and more prompts, you can do that as well. So this structure can get really complicated. There's some great blog posts on making this structure and the thought process you need to put in to making this structure work really well. Again, this video is kind of just to help you guys get over the hump and get started with the multi-turn. So now if I test this bot, I can say, what does Pate stand for? It says Pate stands for, and there's the response text, and then the buttons to contact us, and now we can say see our services. So I click on see our services. It's got those other prompts that I can now click on for what those prompts should be. So I want to know about Microsoft Teams CIE, and then it shows that response for Teams CIE. So you can see how that flows there. And if you want to go in, after the fact now and say, well, now that I've actually got this created, you could go back to your document the way it was before and kind of paste that information in there. So I can say, Pate stands for powerful, alone, invincible together, and I can just edit this response right here in line and say Pate stands for powerful and invincible together. I can save it. And now I can test it. So now when I say what does Pate stand for, you can see it gives us the response, powerful and invincible together, contact us and see our services. Okay. It's also important to note that when you click one of these buttons, what it's actually doing is just putting the text of that button into the text box. So if you click on contact us, it's actually, it's basically you typing the word contact us, and that's kind of how it works. The bot's not smart enough to know that your only options are contact us and see our services. So it doesn't keep track of where you're at or your state. So if I say, what are your services, it gives me those prompts, but I can now type in anything else I want, like what does Pate stand for. It's not like, hey, wait a second, you're asking me about services. Now you're not. So it's not tracking my state, but it does prompt you to help you kind of decide where you should go next. So that's an important distinction. As far as publishing this bot, you can publish it to Teams, you can publish it to your websites. If you, again, go back and look at the video I did before this, it will actually walk you through the steps of also publishing the bot. So in the previous video, it walks you through creating the QnA service in Azure and also publishing the bot to Teams. But it's pretty straightforward. This multi-turn stuff is pretty cool. I think we're going to be using it shortly on the Pate Group website, so keep an eye out for that. And I hope this helps you guys get started using multi-turn bots with the QnA Maker. Thanks.